Jeff, how exciting is this for you to see your son progress to the level where you had a ton of success, obviously, over 20 wins in the Cup Series? How cool is it going to see for you to see your son make his debut this weekend?
It's exciting for us. I mean, we, as a family, we raced with Harrison when he was 4 years old. Think about, all those days and nights at the quarter midget track and seeing him work his way up through, up through series and really watching him have success in all those series. I think that's the main thing. If he wasn't having success, it wouldn't be an appropriate thing for him to move. But having success that he's had at really almost every level he's been in, it's a great opportunity for him. Now, listen, as mom and dad, it's going to be a little nerve wracking. Obviously Talladega is a nerve wracking place. Harrison was working with some of his guys a little while ago, watching footage of some older races, and I walked in and hell, I got nervous watching the replays and knew it was going to happen. So it's just a crazy racetrack. It always has been. But it's something that's part of our racing. If you want to race and you want to be in NASCAR, Talladega and Daytona, two places you're going to go, and you're going to go there often.
Awesome. Now we will head to some media questions. So Bob Pockrass, we'll head to you first.
Thanks for taking the time, Harrison. Why Talladega for your Cup debut?
I didn't necessarily, point it out on the map and decide that was the place I wanted to go. I guess that's where the opportunity came, right? And I think I feel like I said this in another interview. I don't know if it's right or not. I think John Gruden always says in football, the best ability is availability. So in racing, I guess it's the same, right? When the opportunity comes, no matter what the track, whether it's a road course, a dirt track, a oval, wherever, you have to be ready for it. And so this is an amazing opportunity for me. We've seen the Gaunt brothers car do well recently, especially with Ty Dillon recently. They ran really well in the duels and showed a lot of speed. So for me, it seemed like it was a good opportunity and something I was looking forward to, and hard to go wrong with that.
And I mean, do you feel as comfortable at what we used to call a restrictor plate track, Talladega, Daytona, as you do at a short track?
I don't know if comfortable. I definitely don't feel comfortable. I feel comfort in the discomfort. Does that make sense? Where you understand that there's going to be moments where, especially watching the Cup race back, leading right up to this interview, I've been watching race film, and those Cup guys are aggressive, man. Like, everyone's all but wrecked every lap, and being prepared for that and understanding that there's going to be discomfort and trying to find a way to handle that adversity is something I'm excited about. It would probably be a little bit more simple to go to a short track and just kind of run where you're going to run and do all that, but gosh, it's a crazy opportunity. I'm excited for it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Next we'll go to Deb Williams.
Thank you both for joining us today. This one's for Jeff initially. Jeff, how did you and Kim feel about it when you found out that Talladega was going to be Harrison's Cup debut? Did you try to talk him out of it or suggest another track?
Well, actually, when Pockrass asked that question, I was thinking, damn, that's what I wanted to know. Deb, like I said, I mean, it certainly it's it has its pluses and its minuses, right? I mean, with no practice, I've been vocal about, on TV with no practice and how that affects rookies. When you go to a place like Talladega, it's a racetrack where, he really doesn't have to just take off and just have all the pressure of staying on the lead lap and all those kind of things. He can kind of work up to understanding the car. And if he would have gone to somewhere, majority of races obviously don't have practice. If he'd have gone to one of those racetracks, he would have just been thrown in green with zero opportunity to take the first stage, the competition caution, whatever it happens to be, to get comfortable with the car, because they're coming to lap you. And the competitor in you doesn't want that to happen. So, in some ways it's obviously a really tough racetrack to go, and a lot of things we've seen happen there. But in other ways, it creates an opportunity to gradually get to know your car and get to know your competition. So just like everything in life, it's got pluses and minuses. And when I looked, when I looked at the whole thing, I thought, wow, that's actually a good opportunity for him to get some experience early in the race without all the pressure. And of course, that'll build. That's going to build throughout the race, and it's going to get more and more difficult as the race goes on. But for me, I like the first part of that. The second part of it, I don't. But you can't have both.
Okay, thank you. And Harrison, what's the best advice that Jeff has given you in going into this race?
I don't know. I think, my dad has always been there for me to give me advice and help me out along the way. I think for this race in particular, just understanding, his experience in the Cup Series and him understanding what the intensity level is. Those guys are, those guys are the best of the best, and they're there for a reason. And finding a way to manage that intensity and handle that as a rookie is a tough challenge. But my advantage is I was kind of around my dad, and I was obviously around my dad when he was racing Cup, and I kind of understand that intensity from that aspect. But having him explain it to me and explain what he thinks the race is going to be like from his experience has been pretty vital, I think.
Okay, thank you. Have a good race.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Next, we'll go to Dustin Albino.
Hey, Jeff, this is for you. I talked to Harrison yesterday about the same topic, but how important do you think it's been for him having Blake Cook as a driver coach and really kind of helping him develop as a race car driver?
Listen, I think it's been really important. And Blake works really hard. Harrison works really hard. They match each other's work ethic. Having those relationships is really important in regard to it's a different world than when I drove, right? When I drove, I won most of my races because I changed springs. I didn't change them, but I kind of knew what springs and shocks that I wanted in my car. In today's world, there's engineers, there's all kinds of people smarter than the driver. And also the driver has so many more tools available to him. Being able to corral all that up and have someone to bounce things off of and kind of look over your shoulder, I think is vital. And it not be your dad. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want to be Harrison's driver coach, right? I don't have any interest in that. I want to be Harrison's dad, and I want to be able to have conversations with Harrison about 10,000-foot view things, not foot off the ground things. And we all know, everybody that's in the sport knows that the smallest things make the biggest differences. And I don't want to be Harrison's guy that's talking to him about all the small things, because the only thing we'd be talking about is negative stuff. Because you don't have to work on the things that you're doing well. You have to work on the things you're not doing well. And that's just not the relationship I want with my son, and nor is it the relationship I think he wants with me. So having somebody else come in there and that has the intensity level that Blake has and is willing to match the work ethic that Harrison has, because Harrison works way harder at his driving than I ever did. And when I watch him work, it really reminds me of what I believe a professional quarterback would be doing. And you can't do that on your own. You have to have somebody helping you. So I think it's been vital. Blake's done a great job, and Harrison's done a great job of being willing to listen. And that is, hard-headedness is a trait of race car drivers. Y'all may not, the media might not know that. I suspect you do, but it is a trait of race car drivers because we're the kind of personalities that just believe we can do it. Like, we can do anything. Like, we can do it. Just let me do it. Get out of my way. I can do it. That's a general race car driver personality. And for that personality to take a step back and say, another perspective might be good for me, I think that's really important. And Blake and Harrison, they just work really, really well together.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Dustin. And just a reminder, if you have questions for either Harrison or Jeff, definitely raise your hand or send me a chat and we will get you in queue. Next up is Daniel.
Hey, this is for Jeff. So Jeff, like a lot of people have made their first Cup starts at Talladega. I'm curious from your perspective, when you made your just first Talladega start in Cup in 1994. How different was that experience of that race compared to what you experienced in the Busch Series in your first two starts there, 92 and 93?
So Daniel, I would say that I've got to go and really compare that to my first Daytona 500 experience, because I remember that one so much more vividly. And I knew the competition in Xfinity was tough. I couldn't comprehend how much tougher it would be in Cup. And when the race got done, I was like, what have I gotten myself into, right? Because, it just, the competition level it's not one step, it's 3 or 4 steps. And that's what really stood out to me on that day, on my first Superspeedway race in a Cup car, was just how more intense it is, and how much more, I don't know what the word is. It's just, you have so many more drivers that can win. And understanding that perspective, I've said this 1,000 times to people that listen to me, it's why an Xfinity driver, a Cup driver, has so much of an advantage when he goes back Xfinity racing or goes back truck racing, because he's been racing those guys over there, and there's, a bunch of them that can win races at the Cup level, and he comes back, and nothing against truck drivers or Xfinity drivers, but in general, they're not racing with less experience, right? Mm-hmm. And it just feels like, it feels like a golfer where the hole looks this big, right? And just having those experiences of what it's like to race against those guys, until you do it, you don't understand it. And that was my Daytona 500. That's what really stood out to me. And I think that in the long run, that's going to help Harrison also. And I think it helps any young driver that goes to Cup. I think Austin Cindric, having run a few Cup races, he's going to be even harder to beat in the Xfinity Series. I just think it's a great experience, and it makes you better.
Okay. And for Harrison, every year drivers get asked the same questions of, what's your strategy? Get to the front, stay in the back. And with this being your first time in a Cup race at Talladega, that question might take on a little bit more meaning. So for you, are you going to bide your time for a while, or are you going to try to just make your way up to the front as steady as you can?
Yeah. For me, I'm starting in 39th. So, I'm going to be in the back as it starts out. And that first segment is going to be, hey, what does this car do when I do this? What is going on here? Working with the team, gaining that experience, early. It's a long race, and obviously a lot longer than I'm accustomed to. So I feel like I have enough time to where I can spend some time getting up to speed, and by the end of the race, be aggressive and go after it and try and get the win. I'm not going to say I'm going to ride around, because I don't really think that, my team owner, Marty Gaunt, I don't think, actually we just were on the phone with him. I don't think that, that's what he wants. I don't think that's what I want. So, like I said in the first question, I'm here. Obviously it's awesome to be in this situation and awesome to have this opportunity, but that's not what I'm necessarily satisfied with, if that makes sense. I want to make the most of it. And, for me, riding around for most of the race, I feel like if I get to the end of the race doing that, I'm not going to have the experience I need to make the moves I need to make to win the race. So I don't know. It's going to change. I'm sure my mindset will change, and probably 25 times before I get to the racetrack. And, you always make a plan in racing, and then the first lap happens and it all goes away. So trying to figure that out in the moment is going to be tough, but something I'm excited to try and do.
And how weird is it to be able to say you're going to be the first driver born in the 21st century to be in a Cup race?
Well, that is crazy. I didn't know that. That is crazy. I never really thought of that. That's pretty nuts. I don't know. I think that the youth movement in our sport, it's really great right now. I've got a lot of people that I've grown up racing around that are, great talents, and it's been fun racing all those guys and trying to make my way up through there. And I think that there's going to be obviously more of us in the future. So I don't know. That's crazy. I've never thought about that. And that is a weird thing to say, for sure. It makes me feel young. It probably makes my dad feel old.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm not going to call names, but one of the person's initials are Jim Utter. I'm sure that a lot of us feel really old after hearing that, but it's not just me and others. I see there's a bunch of names on here. I know that like, oh no, that makes me feel really old. Yeah, that's a crazy stat. Sorry, Utter, I had to get you there.
Thank you. We'll head to Claire.
Thank you. Just for fun, I have a question for you, Jeff. Just for fun, I have a question for you, Jeff, and you, Harrison. So Keelan Harvick is racing tonight in the iRacing Pro Invitational. And I'm going to hold you to this and put you on my show tonight. I'm going to ask each of you, who finishes better, young Keelan Harvick, because it's an iRace, or Kevin Harvick? And I'm going to ask you each for your prediction.
Oh man, I don't think either of us are racing to unmute to try and answer that. I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to think when I was 8. I don't think at 8 years old, you know, I'd raced quarter midgets. I'd never been in a stock car. Gosh, that's tough. I'm probably gonna have to go with Kevin. Keelan's gonna give him a run for his money, I think. You know, he's got the technology edge, but I think Kevin's got the racing experience edge for sure. So I'll go Kevin Harvick, and you know, if Keelan beats him, I'll have to give Keelan a fist bump.
Jeff?
So if you watched me iRace, you would 100% think that I would pick Keelan because I'm horrible at it. You know, it just doesn't come natural to me. The way I drove was more by feel than by vision. Maybe that's why I hit a lot of stuff. But I'm going to stick with the old guys, old dudes rule. So I'm going to pick Kevin. But Keelan will be there. I think that young guys and you know, in virtual situations, they have a different perspective, and I think it makes them better. But I'm gonna have to stick with the old dudes.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Claire. We will head to Dustin.
Thank you, Harrison. I'm curious. Look, you can look at data, and you can see how you compare with the Cup drivers, Xfinity drivers. You've raced against some of these Cup drivers in the Xfinity race, so you've got that experience. I'm curious, though, when you have this experience this weekend, what are you hoping you can measure yourself and with these guys, with this level of competition? You know, what are you intrigued to see? You know, what you can learn to carry forward, you know, considering there's all this information out there and things you can view, but you can't get the firsthand knowledge like you'll have on Sunday.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously analytically, I've been trying to focus on a lot of things recently and trying to get better. And, you know, I think the biggest thing that I want to try and take away from this isn't analytical. It's more, I think, decision-making based. You know, you look at guys that are, you know, they decide to be aggressive at times and they decide not to be at times. And sometimes you think they have like a sixth sense, right? They know when the wreck's going to happen. I think Denny Hamlin is huge in that. You know, plate racing in particular, he knows when things are going to happen. He pulls out of the pack and then they wreck and then he's racing for the win again. It's crazy. And so I always feel like my decision making is one of my biggest strengths, and thinking on the fly in the car is one of my biggest strengths. So I want to try and measure that, something that I think is a strength of mine, against the Cup field, and understand, you know, gosh, you know, I watched the most recent Talladega race from last year, and they're, you know, pushing like crazy from the beginning, and then all of a sudden they decide it's not time to do it anymore, and playoff drivers have different agendas, and there's so many things going on, and so I want to see how I can navigate that situation. I guess is one of the most intriguing things for me, is to handle that aggression or to you know, decide to back out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. We will go to Jim.
First, for Jeff, if I didn't think I was old, Harrison doing Cup racing, Keelan racing Cup drivers, and iRacing, I think I'm ready to retire. That's a lot to handle in 1 year. But my question's for Harrison. Your dad talked about all the preparation that you do just in general. What have you thought about? What have you been doing specifically since you found out about that you were doing this race?
Yeah, it's been tough because I'm trying to remain focused on my Xfinity races, and I normally prepare in Xfinity, one race, 1 week, and I kind of take my whole week leading up to a race is spent preparing on that race, and then once that race is over, I spend maybe the weekend debriefing that, and we have our meetings on Tuesday, and I do some sim work on Monday. Then other than that, it's right to the next weekend. So there's not really a ton of time to lead up to it. On track preparation, other than this week. And this week I've been really hammering a lot of race film. But the one thing that I will say is, I think, every time I go to the gym, I'm in there pretty much every day of the week that I'm home. I'm in the gym working out at Toyota's Performance Center and getting better in that regard. But I always feel like whenever there's something like the playoffs around the corner or a long race or something, my intensity picks up in there. And this, for these, I've probably known for about 3 weeks, it's been pretty high intensity, I guess, in the gym. And that's been kind of fun is, you kind of have another interesting thing like, gosh, I got to be ready. It's a long race, and that's something I've been really trying to focus on is being physically ready. Especially if Saturday rains, we never know. It's looking like it might rain and I might be having to run 2 on Sunday or 1 on Monday or whatever, who knows? But, there's a lot of possibilities that can happen there, and being ready for it is a priority.
And every driver wants to win the race, and you always get asked about like your objectives or goals. But what in whatever way that you think is best, how would you describe what you hope to take away just from this experience in general?
Yeah, my biggest thing I want to take away is that feeling that my dad was talking about earlier of, when you go run against the Cup guys, you come to a Xfinity or Truck Series and you feel like your margin for error is bigger, you're able to be more aggressive, that you feel like it's almost everything's in slow motion, right? That's something I want to take back from this Cup race to my Xfinity campaign and try and use that as an advantage. And I think if I could do this race, if I handle this situation the right ways and do things the way I want them to go, I think I'll have that opportunity, especially for plate races. So that's the biggest thing I want to take away is just being a better race car driver from it, and hopefully put myself in a situation where I can perform well.
And last question, you have any indication whether you'll have any other possible opportunities the rest of this year in Cup?
Not at this point. I don't. This is the one that I know about for sure. And I didn't know about this one in particular for very much longer than you guys did. So if it does happen, I would, obviously I'd love to get more races under the belt and run as many as possible. I'm a racer, and that's what I love to do. But I don't know of any at this point in time that are around the corner.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jim. We will head to Luis.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me at all, Harrison?
Yep, I got you.
Oh, okay. Also appreciate saying my name correctly, Cody. I highly appreciate it. All right. So it's been mentioned already that things have kind of sorted out last minute. You're obviously going to Talladega. You mentioned the likelihood of probably doing both Cup and Xfinity depending on Mother Nature, how it cooperates. What is kind of like the biggest goal to help Gone Brothers Racing, especially a team that kind of has struggled, notably not making the 500 back in February with Ty?
Yeah, my biggest thing is my job. What I'm fortunate enough to be in a situation where I make a living driving race cars is to give the race team that I'm working for the best finish that I possibly can, and whether that's my first race with the team or my last race with the team, that'll never change. In my eyes of what I'm doing as a driver, I'll never think of it as I'm just happy to be here and ride around and all that. My goal is to get the best finish I can get and learn the most I can get. Obviously, selfishly, I want to do all the things like I talked about, be a better race car driver from it, all those things. But, the priority is finishing well in the race and doing the best I can do. And, I think Gaunt Brothers, even though they had those struggles in the 500, they had a lot of speed. I think they finished 6th in the duel, and they got beat, off I forget, it was Priest or someone passed them who was already locked into the show from qualifying. And so, they kind of had a heartbreaking deal to not make that race, and hopefully I can kind of atone for that and give them a great finish.
Knowing that, how encouraging is it to be with a car that is competitive, and which you are correct about how nail-biting that was on Thursday when it happened?
Yeah, it's obviously encouraging. As a race car driver, you want to be in a spot where you feel like you have a car under you that can win the race. And, hopefully we'll have that. I wish I could tell you before the race. Nowadays we just roll off and we find out then and there. Right. But, I think that, for me personally, it's encouraging to, roll into the racetrack knowing, gosh, I know it's my first Cup race, but there's still a chance we can make something spectacular happen. And, that's an amazing feeling, whether it's in Xfinity with Joe Gibbs Racing, going into the racetrack knowing that we're competing for wins, or now with Gaunt Brothers Racing and their recent form on the Superspeedways. It's definitely encouraging.
Thank you, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deb, did you have a follow-up? You still have your hand up. Just want to make sure.
If no one else has a question, I would like to ask one, if I may.
Go ahead. We will let you ask one.
This
and
is
then
to Harrison. You were talking about this being Okay. Harrison, you were talking about this being the opportunity. Well, how did this come about? When did you know this, and how long it had been in the works? And just kind of take us through that, please.
Yeah, it all came together pretty late. I hadn't really heard about it too much. Obviously it's with, our friends at Toyota. So, that was obviously a huge part of the conversation, having their backing with me and them supporting me. Actually, my dad was the one that, posed the question to me right in the beginning. I was at my dad's house and we were hanging out, and he asked if I wanted to run a Cup race. I said, sure. and so then the ball started rolling and I became more and more involved. I'm very fortunate to have my parents around me because they're really experienced in the business side of things around the sport. And I'm able to kind of follow their lead on some things, so I can just focus on being the best driver I can be. Then, once the deal was finalized, then it was all about getting ready for the race.
Okay, so when was the deal finalized?
Oh, exact date, I don't know. It wasn't long ago. It was pretty short notice. Gosh, I don't know exactly. I mean, verbal agreements. I don't have an exact date on it. Not long ago, that's for sure.
I mean, what, last 2 weeks, last month?
I'd say within the last probably 2.5 weeks or so, 3 weeks. So yeah, nothing all that far notice, but that's just a guesstimation though. I don't want to put that on I wouldn't take that to the bank. I'll say that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Deb. And then we will close out the media availability with a question from Daniel.
Yes. So, Jeff, with the COVID restrictions still kind of in place until Darlington, what's the plan for, I guess, you and Kim being in attendance on Sunday? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, I mean, that stinks, right? I mean, it stinks for everybody. It stinks for the fans. It stinks for everybody. Just, it is what it is. NASCAR is navigating through that the best they know how. I support, NASCAR 1,000% in what they're doing and what they have to do in order to get race cars on the racetrack. And I know that NASCAR would love for Kim and I to be standing there with Harrison right before his first Cup race, but I also know that it just doesn't make sense right now. So, they're working hard to and when the time's appropriate, so that people can do the things that we're accustomed to doing and what makes NASCAR great. But for now, we just can't do it. And, Is that disappointing? Yeah. Kim and I are both disappointed that we won't be able to stand there with Harrison before his first Cup race. But is it understood? It's completely understood. And so we will do one of two things. We will sit in the stands and watch the race, or we will sit in the family suite. And NASCAR's done an incredible job, in my opinion. I actually texted O'Donnell one day during the races this year. Kim and I were in the suite, and I said, "Man, this family suite's incredible." Like it was NASCAR went out of their way, in my opinion, to give the family a place to go. Maybe not always both of us. Maybe there's not room for both of us. Maybe only one of us can go, and that's okay too. It is what it is. This is a difficult situation, and NASCAR is trying to work their way through it. And it's disappointing for us, but it is what it is, and we will watch from the stands or from that suite.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to Harrison and Jeff for joining us today, and thank